water there, the place where my musical idol called home for the last 15 years of his life. Described Goring as his sanctuary, so his locals seemed a fitting place to talk to three of his backing singers as they embark on a tour celebrating the man and his music.
Baby, your mama gave you a boy. It's the same old, maybe your daddy didn't love you enough. Girl, how much is enough?
Jay, Shirley and Joe, thank you so much for coming to Goring.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for
and I know it's
us.
difficult because you haven't been back here since George passed, so it means a great deal to us.
Of course it does.
What's it like being back here today?
Oh, I was just saying that it's really emotional. I haven't been here for a long time. Last time I was here, I was having a party at George's house, so yeah, it was quite emotional driving through. And I've got a tissue just in case I can tear.
Yeah, I definitely avoided it completely and just headed straight here because I was when this first came up and you know, you'd said that you wanted to do it here. Our first instincts were like, can't go anywhere near this place, but then I started to think about the happier times and the fun, you know, summer parties we used to have here, and yeah, I just kind of got my head around it that way. And then when Jo came in, like, she was already had tears in her eyes, and I thought, oh no, because normally I'm the crier.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not normally me who's the tearful one, it's Shirley.
Let's go back to the beginning. I mean, how did George Michael come into your lives?
Oh, well, I can thank God that he did, but yeah, I guess I was the first kind of one in. They call me the original OG. Yeah, the OG. And I started working with George. Actually, at the Wham final was my first show with him. So, not that I knew that much about Wham, to be honest with you, and Bill, don't hate me, but I didn't, and so I wasn't that intimidated by, you know, that George Michael, because we just kind of became friends. I'd seen him whilst I was on tour with Elton John, and that's kind of how we became friends. And then when he asked me to do the final, I was like, wow, this is going to be like an incredible day. Little did I know that when that curtain dropped, with the, you know, just with that final on it, and the curtain dropped, I was stunned by the sheer, like, the breadth of everyone just screaming, and I was like, wow, he's a really big star. So I was just, you know, grateful for that, and obviously so grateful for him for having me along that journey until the end, really.
And Jay, what about you? Because you're obviously a male voice.
Yeah, well, I actually met George through his best friend, a guy called David Austin. He had a record company called Master Record Company, and he signed me to his label. And he came up with this idea. He said, you know what, I've got this song that George wanted me to sing that he wanted to produce. It was a song called One Nation Under a Groove. You know, so we went to a place in London called Zilla's, a lovely restaurant. And then we spoke and stuff. And during that whole period, he said, do you know what, Jay, I'm going out on tour. And he said, look, would you like to come along? And I said, can I think about it? I didn't say that. Do you know what I mean? And he said,
don't say that to George.
Of course you don't.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and like it just all began from there. And that's when I met, you know, Shirley. And it just spiraled from there. And we've been working with George for now maybe 30 years or so.
Yeah.
I think probably about 10 years after you guys, I think. So a mutual friend of myself and George, a lovely man called Branson, he was a photographer. He's no longer sadly with us either. He nicked my demo cassette tape from my bag and played it at the studio where he was taking pictures of George. And George was like, who's this? And he said, this is this girl, Jo, that I've been trying to talk to you about. Anyway, I met him that evening. He phoned me and said, come, you've got to come and meet me. So I met him that evening and we sat in front of each other just playing records, and we had so many, such a common interest in music, the same similar taste of music. And one in particular was a lady called Patrice Rushen, because of her vocal sound. And anyway, and then the next day he signed me to his record label. And it was so bizarre because like a year and a half later of recording with him in the studio on my stuff, he called me up and said, would you come and do some backing vocals for me? And I ended up doing Sending You Forget-Me-Nots, which is a Patrice Rushen track on the fast.
Well done, this is exactly what I would want you to do. You just feel that presence. I mean, just even saying that, it
gives you chills.
Gives me a chill. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
because that's all he cared about. That's what he wanted.
George is a music man. He's like,
He always said that if anything ever happened to him, he just wanted to be remembered as a great singer and songwriter. And I just, well,
we're carrying the baton off.
So we'll continue. He's like the oak tree, and I wear this little thing. It's got a little acorn. He's like the oak tree, and the acorns have fallen, and we're that, and we're trying to make something grow from it.
Incredible.
What do you think it was about your sound? Because he was all about the music. I mean, it meant everything to him.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think we were saying earlier about when we were talking about Wham, that George used to do all his own vocals in Wham, and it was definitely a conscious thing for him to, when he was doing his solo album, that he wanted a George Michael sound. Unfortunately for us three, we are the George Michael sound. So we helped create it with him. So he taught us how to do this. It's he drilled us hard.
And also he individually handpicked all of us. So we've all got very similar sort of tones, haven't we? Sound. It's quite a warm tone.
Because I was going to say, I mean, it's like, obviously a lot of stuff that George would do in the studio, he couldn't replicate that live. So he wanted somebody who can match up to his tone. I mean, he didn't mind the odd kind of colour change as far as tone was concerned, but we had to match up in what he wanted, and he knew exactly what he actually wanted. And as I was saying earlier, there was a point after singing with George for so many years, even when I was trying to do my own stuff, I was still sounding like George, it was kind of annoying. It's like, oh my God, I can't get this out of my head, you know. So that's why we've got such a tight sound now, which we call,
the George Michael sound.
But that's who you are. You're the George Michael singers. Yeah. So, what was it like being in a studio with him? Because you've been in a studio with him, and you've also been on some of his biggest shows.
Well, firstly, you would get a call, wouldn't you, Shirley, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Because that's when he got up.
Yeah. Can you come to the studio now? You'd literally, yes. So it was all very sort of spontaneous. I've had some amazing moments in the studio with him, especially A Moment With You. There's a track on the Patience album called A Moment With You, and it was the first time that I'd actually gone into the vocal booth with him, because normally, he'd do your vocals when he'd like sit by the desk, and you'd be in the vocal booth, and he came in with me this time, and we had this kind of sort of smoochy moment where we were on the microphone sharing the microphone and sort of slow dancing, and for one split second he wasn't gay. he was my boyfriend, and I was like, it was just so, it's a very romantic smoochy song.
Yeah,
and
we've both
you might have changed him.
I did for that split second.
We've both had those moments with him. It's the same when we recorded Father Figure. We were in the studio together, the mic is here, and you're looking at each other, and and I was thinking, I think George Michael loved me. He just loved the sound I was making, I guess.
Was he very particular?
Very. George is, I mean, he's so, I mean, like, when he's in the studio, he knows exactly what he wants. It's really weird. There was a time we was in the studio, and George was in his own head, and he was asking a question about what harmony should go where, but he was really speaking to himself. And I remembered, because he was looking at me, I answered him, but it was like a rhetorical thing, and he just turned away, and I thought, George, are you doing this right now? But he was always he knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
and he wouldn't stop until.
Yeah, we rehearsed, didn't we? For anything we ever did, we'd rehearse for like 6 weeks. And you just, when you rehearse for that long and you've been singing with the same person for that long, you just, as we said, you know
instinctively what he wants.
Yeah.
And he knows with us as well. It's like he doesn't have to say too much to us. It's like, I need it a little breathier here, a little harder here. It's like, okay, we got it. We know what you want.
Exactly.
So you can't spend 25 years with someone and not know them.
Of course. And if George doesn't like something,
he will
tell you. He'll say like, no, and you're like, okay then, boss.
Do you feel very privileged?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even more so now, I think. At the time I was so young, and he made me feel so comfortable. So he was my friend, he was my mate, he was my mentor. There were so many layers to George, and I have so much to thank him for. But now looking back, I'm going to get all emotional again. Now looking back, yeah, I just honestly really feel so
we
so
never
honoured.
expected him not to be here. So that's where, that's where the emotion comes. Is you don't expect that your mate is not going to be around. So anyway, I'm getting.
And it's go on, sorry. And it's weird. I mean, because even in doing the show we last done and stuff, it was like actually before actually doing it, it was impossible. I couldn't even listen to a George song for like maybe 3 years. I honestly couldn't listen. Didn't want to hear about it. I just didn't want. My feelings couldn't handle it. So it was like what we're doing now was the ideal time to do it, and that's why I find that. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of tribute bands doing it, and they do a great job. But I found that even harder to actually deal with.
Let's talk about the tour then. I mean, how did the idea come around? Because, yes, let's remind people, you were on some of his biggest hits.
Yeah.
You were there for, 25 Live, Symphonica, Wham! The Final, like you said. So, you've been on a journey with him. So what made you think one day we should take to the stage?
Well, myself and Shirley were on a tour about a year and a half ago, and we were just sharing stories, memories. And we'd be driving from one theatre to another, and we'd be sharing a story, and then a George Michael song would come up on the radio. We kept going, ooh, this is weird. And then we'd be sharing another story, and then maybe a memory would pop up on social media. And I don't know, we had so many memories, didn't we? And just, we were laughing and crying and all sorts of stuff. And we just looked at each other one day, and we just thought, actually, do you know what? We've got so many incredible stories. So many amazing memories that we just want to share them.
So it was
an audience.
Yes, it's not. Obviously, the music speaks for itself. If you're a George Michael fan, you would love his music, and he's just an incredible lyricist and producer and all of that. So everybody knows all of that. So you get the music, but the heart of our show are the stories. Yeah. It's like, as we're sitting here talking to you now, we're talking to the audience about special moments that we've had, and we do have a few tears and we have a few laughs, because that's what our life was with George. It was laughs and there were tears, because that's life, And when you lose someone that you have such admiration for, and just he's our boss, right? He was our boss, but he was also our friend. So we just really want to celebrate him. Thank him and share our love with his fans, because they all miss him too, and I think they go away with something you will never get anywhere else. It can only come from us.
And the weirdest thing is, it's like, I think when you're performing on stage and you actually feel the presence, it's like he's there. It's like he's still in front of us, and it's like a surreal moment, because even with the last show that we did, I mean, you can't remember going on stage and then you get the applause, but the rest of it is like a blur, because you're in a different state of mind, because the feelings are so strong. It's like you're in that moment, and
everything we do is with him in mind. So every bit of music, every bit of phrasing we do, it's like it has to be. If George was in our ears, he'd be going, nope, do that again. So we're very, very conscious of that. That show has to be the show that George would want, and which is why we have his musical director, Steve Sidwell, who is incredible, amazing has been working with George longer than me actually. He was actually the trumpet player in Wham, so he ended up being George's musical director, and he is our musical director, and he's absolutely brilliant and knows what George would want, and he makes sure that he runs this ship exactly the way George wanted it to be run.
And we've also, every decision we make, and we run it past the George Michael estate as well, and they've been incredibly supportive, and and we're very respectful to George's brand and
his brand.
So,
that's really important. That, George, at the end of the day, the estate is taking care of George Michael brand, and that needs to be protected at all costs. So although it's not, they don't endorse our show, but they help us with the show so that we can do it the way George would want. They've given us an incredible image of George to use on stage, which no one gets to do that. So we're very, very grateful to them. And also, I think that we were actually called Cowboys and Angels before, because again, we were being respectful and didn't want to use George Michael's name if it wasn't okay with them. But they were like, but you are the George Michael Singers, so why don't you just be called the George Michael Singers?
Yeah.
And then we were like, that makes way more
Well, we've done us
sense.
a favour there,
It
right?
says what it does on the tin.
Yeah. So I don't know what we were thinking, but you know.
And that was what was really lovely about him, though, is the fact of like he felt like he loved having us around him because it just made him feel more secure. And somebody like, I don't know many artists that would kind of have their background singers as a part of their thing, but we felt very much like us and George, which was amazing. Really.
I actually can't think of another, and if anyone out there does have the information, but I can't think of another artist that has had the same singers from the beginning to the end of his career. I actually don't know anyone. You will always find us behind George, no matter how many other singers were involved. Obviously, we've worked with loads of different singers, but we're always there. You will always find. I said this the other day. I was doing an Instagram post, and I was like, I miss standing behind George. I do. I just miss, because there's always him, and then oh no, there she is again. But I miss it. I miss standing behind him. I really do.
George had a great sense of humour when he did things like Carpool, karaoke, the extras with Ricky Gervais, and the Catherine Tate show. That just shows him, was he constantly like that? And then when he was refused entry into his own concert as well, that was so funny.
He thought that was hilarious. He kept going on about it all the time. But actually, Joe's got a really funny story about the sandwiches. You have to tell that he was a bit upset about.
It was Christmas, and he decided he wanted to take loads of sandwiches to the homeless. So we were all making sandwiches, and because I'd moved to Highgate at that point, because anyway, it's another story, it's another long story, but I'd moved to Highgate at that point, so I'd spent a lot of time with George. Anyway, so this Christmas he decided that we wanted to make sandwiches, so we were all making sandwiches. Actually, George wasn't making sandwiches at all. He was just standing there watching us making sandwiches. My mum was making most of them. Anyway, we piled them all in the back of his Range Rover, and we were driving around Soho, and when you come over, I think it's Waterloo Bridge, there used to be this really sort of very large underground area where a lot of the homeless would be there. It's no longer there now, and we drove down there and we were driving around it, and honestly it was so scary that we were like, come on, let's go. He was like, come on, we're getting out of here. So then we drove out of there, and then we started to drive around more quieter streets in Soho, and we started handing out sandwiches, and he was getting more and more annoyed. And I said, what's going on? No one's recognising it. No one's recognising it. It's really annoying. So he ended up telling me, it's George Michael. It's George Michael.
I love that. Wow. I love that.
And he weren't dressed up as Father Christmas, no.
No, he was only joking. He didn't mind it. No one recognised him.
So the tour, what can people listen to in terms of tracks?
All his greatest hits, really. I mean,
yeah, we do a few Wham tracks as well, which is going to be, that's always fun to do those. But we do all the songs that everyone wants to hear: Careless Whisper, Freedom, Fast Love, You Have Been Loved. There's so many, but again, it really is the heart of this show are the stories. If you want a more of an insight into George Michael, the man, this is the show for you, really.
Bring some tissues though. Definitely bring some tissue, because the opening of the show just draws people in. And bring some dancing shoes, because you'll definitely be dancing as well.
Yeah.
So in the Meridian area we've got Southend, Swindon, Guildford and Fareham.
Yeah.
How can I forget Fareham? Yes, that's brilliant.
So if you're in the area, come see us.
And just lastly, do you ever think that, obviously we lost George in 2016. Do you think about what he might be doing musically now?
Which I think one of the last things that we thought we was about to, they were speaking about maybe, George has always said we'd end up doing Vegas, right?
Yeah.
That was always his thing, do you know what I mean? So we thought, I think if he was around now, that's probably what we'd be doing.
We probably would. He used to say, you know what, we're all going to be sitting around on stalls in Vegas when we're 70, right? And we were like, okay, we're good with that. But you know what? Maybe we will be, and we'll do it for him. for
I
sure.
think he'd still be writing.
Oh, he would be. He would have to.
He'd
Yeah,
still
we'd definitely
be
been on
releasing.
tour.
Yeah. I mean,
he couldn't
was-
stop
no, he
making
couldn't,
music.
no.
It's like that
was his thing.
Like, that's,
He was
that's
so
his baby.
incredibly prolific. I mean, you know, you'd go in and work on, you know, the particular tracks, but he had about 40 already written that were already in the bag, so that he could revisit. So that, you know, he was always writing. Incredible lyricist. I mean, his music
That was his life.
still stands the test of time now. It's just amazing.
Well done. This is exactly what I would want you to do. You just feel that presence. I mean, just even saying that, it
gives you chills.
gives me a chill. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Because that's all he cared about. That's what he wanted.
George is a music man. He's like,
He always said that if anything ever happened to him, he just wanted to be remembered as a great singer and songwriter. And I just, well,
we're
he
carrying
is.
the baton on.
So we'll continue. He's like the oak tree, and I wear this little thing. It's got a little acorn. He's like the oak tree, and the acorns have fallen, and we're that. And we're trying to make something grow from it.